Hello, welcome to this episode of Women in Rugby League Pioneering Years. And it's with great excitement, actually. I'm going to invite someone who I've known for, I think, 40 odd years would probably be it, and who I played with, not played with, but played rugby league with and met in the 1980s scarily, and is known throughout the early doors within Women's Rugby League and is often talked about. So I'd like to welcome Miriam Tickler, who is no longer a tickler, but that's how people will know you. So welcome,
Yes.
Miriam.
Thank you, Julia. It's very nice to be here.
Oh, I'm just so pleased that we've got this time to just talk about it. 'Cause
Yeah,
when I'm looking at sort of the pioneering years, and people thought rugby league started in London a lot later in the 1990s, well, in the 2000s actually.
yeah,
And
that's right.
actually, we know that that's very, very different. That
It is.
actually, women's rugby league started in the 1980s. So, first of all, tell us, how did you get involved in rugby league, and what it, what got your
Right.
interest?
I followed Fulham Football Club, and it was Fulham that decided to have the rugby league, and they were at the time Fulham Rugby League. So
Mhm.
they played at Craven Cottage. So that's where I initially saw them playing, and I'd been brought up on rugby union, so I hadn't seen anything like this, and I was fascinated, and I quickly realised that. I mean, obviously, that's just my opinion, but I quickly realised it was actually a better game because it was faster. And to be honest, the men looked fitter, and it was really good. And looking at a whole, it was like looking at a completely different game that wasn't rugby at all. So I really enjoyed it, and that's what started it off.
Yeah, so first of all, it was your passion sort of actually watching it at Fulham. It was really interesting in that era as well because they were trying to develop the game down south. And obviously, it didn't last long at Fulham, did it, before it sort of then moved to other grounds and got a bit nomadic?
Yeah, I think the problem was that the football fans weren't very impressed by what was happening to the pitch, because obviously back in the day, the
Mm.
pitches are nothing like they are now. I mean, you could play rugby league all day on a pitch, and within sort of a couple of days, they would have that pitch back to perfect condition. And I think that was part of the problem. Also, there wasn't a big enough fan base because it had just
Mm.
started. I mean, we loved it. Um, and I travelled a lot watching them with Michelle Snares. You remember
I
Michelle?
do remember Michelle. I'm trying to get her to be interviewed, but she keeps eluding me.
Because she had a thing about Neil Batty. And, and I don't think it was a very pleasant one either, but yeah. So it was really good fun, but the fan base wasn't great. Also, what fascinated me with it when I first travelled away and was going to home games was the fact that nobody wore the same shirts. So you could have a Fulham fan sitting next to a Hull fan, sitting next to a St Helens fan. Everybody wore shirts from different teams, and I've still got a great big box of shirts that I bought over time because it was all right to wear them. I mean, as a Fulham fan, you certainly wouldn't go around wearing a Chelsea shirt, but as a St Helens fan, you might wear a Wigan shirt because it's a nice shirt. So it's a completely different approach to a game.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the audience? I know we've chatted in the past around the difference between the sort of, because you're still a big football fan now, but
Yeah.
the difference in the audiences between sort of football and rugby.
Well, football seems to be really tribal. So it's almost it's odd because you wouldn't support another team, you wouldn't sit with other fans. I mean, I personally would, but it's not allowed. So you're segregated, which is really odd because when I go to watch Broncos at AFC Wimbledon, we all sit together and it's really good fun and it's very jovial and you don't hear any chanting that's disrespectful to the opposition like you would in football. Um, in being a football fan, I don't join in most of the chants because frankly they're disgusting. And I'm also with my children. Well, they're not children now, they're adults, but neither they wouldn't do that either because
Mm,
it's wrong on
yeah,
many levels, and you
yeah.
don't get that in rugby league.
Yeah, it's a very sense of community and family, isn't it? Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that's interesting, isn't it? That you sort of found that as a southerner. So so how did you get involved in playing then?
Hmm. I I'm trying to think. My football coach, Reg Pierce, you'll remember very
I
well,
do. I remember Reg Pierce well.
was was also coaching a men's rugby league side. And it was sort of the accumulation of me watching the rugby league and Reg being my football coach. Um, he said, you know, you should come down and play rugby league because I think it's more up your street. I was ashamed to say, quite a physical player. And as a goalkeeper, I wouldn't just go for the ball, I'd take everybody out. And this tended to get me into a lot of trouble. So he said, come and watch rugby league, train with the men, and see if you like that. And of course, I did. It was great fun. So, and that's where I met my boyfriend, who's now my husband of 28 years. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And that was
it's all
Surrey
worked.
Heath. That was Surrey Heath who he was
Yes,
coaching, wasn't it?
yes. They were really good to us actually, accepted us. There was a bit of I remember at the beginning, when they were doing tackling practice, and I'd stand there with my tackle bag, I'd be absolutely terrified because they wouldn't hold back, which was fair enough.
Hmm.
After a while, they realised they weren't going to frighten me off, so it then became much better. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. The training was good, the facilities were good. It was great fun.
Mm, yeah. So you started sort of doing a bit of training at Surrey Heath, which was the men's team. So for
Yeah,
those that don't know sort of the history of women's rugby league, and particularly the southern history, Fulham Women came about in about 1988.
yeah.
And tell us a bit more about how you then got involved sort of with Fulham Women um and the sort of what it was like playing for them at the time.
See, this was this is where the dementia sets in because I actually think I started at Surrey Heath when the women's team was up and running. So I used to take Kath Newell with me. Um, and that's so in the end, I think there was five of us that were going training. My memory just plays horrible
Hmm.
tricks with me. Um, in fact, I've forgotten what the question was.
It was about how you got involved with Fulham Women.
Yeah, so I there must have been an advert somewhere um that initially got me involved in that, and also I think Reg was coaching us, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was
So it,
eventually. Yeah.
yeah. So it all led to us going down to Chiswick Poly, where Fulham were playing at the time. Um, I'm not sure if they changed their name by then, but they
No, they
were Fulham.
hadn't. No, they were still
No.
Fulham.
So we obviously went and watched games there, which was great. And I can't remember exactly how, but I think it was an advertisement in a paper, and I thought, oh yes, I'll
Probably
have
got
a
that.
go at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my memory of, and again, it's all about memory and what you remember was our first ever game against Halifax, which was a
Mm.
curtain.
Yeah, I do remember that. Dementia has not taken those memories away from me. Thank you, Lisa Mack and Lindsay
Yeah,
England,
yeah, yeah.
to
And it
name but a few.
just name but a few, yeah. And it was we'd played as a curtain because Bev Risman was actually quite enlightened, who was the
He
coach at
was,
Fulham,
yes.
wasn't he? And
Yes, he
he gave us
was.
a couple of players to help coach us, but they didn't teach us how to catch and pass. They taught us where to
No,
stand.
I think the only thing they taught us was how not to get killed, but actually that wasn't the most helpful training, but you had to start somewhere, I suppose.
And I have a memory of you kicking the ball. So the train that was Lisa Mack and Lindsay England that just
Yeah,
kept ploughing through us. So we used
yeah,
to kick off. They used to then just score.
yeah.
And then in the second, I think it was probably the second half, we managed to get the ball and in attack and hold it for a set of six. You kicked the ball upfield, but instead of us all following, we all stood there and went,
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was just the first time that we'd ever got past the halfway line. Yes, I do remember that. It was really funny.
Oh dear. And we continued, didn't we? So it was quite a tight-knit group, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it was. It was I really enjoyed those years. They were great fun.
Yeah, yeah. And we used to travel down south, up north, should I say,
Yeah.
for games, didn't we? And I think in an ambulance that you borrowed, if I'm right.
Yeah, I borrowed an ambulance once, twice actually. The second time was go to the end of season do at Morecambe. But yeah, we did borrow an ambulance because um getting hold of transport wasn't actually that easy. And I was driving at the time, obviously, but
Mm.
I couldn't get eight or nine people in it. So yeah.
And often traveling up, you didn't often have the numbers to play because it was nine aside then, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, luckily for us, but a lot of the time we couldn't even scrape that together. I'm not surprised because, who wants to get up at stupid o'clock on a Sunday morning to be driven hundreds of miles to get battered by the likes of Lisa Mack and Lindsay English? I did, but yeah, I was always deemed a bit odd. But yeah, I do
Yeah.
understand why we couldn't get the players.
Yeah, yeah, and but it was like, it was about 5, 6 hours, wasn't it? And sometimes
Yeah,
the kickoff, they did move it a bit later for us, didn't they, to
yes,
get there?
yeah, they did. They did. To be fair to the league, they really did try and accommodate us, and they didn't put us off, and we were made to feel part of the league, which was great.
Yeah, yeah. And so training was at Chiswick. What was training at Chiswick? And
Yes, it was the field across the road from the actual pitch.
mm.
So yeah, it
So
was good actually.
yeah, so tell us a bit more about the games and traveling away and what it was like, and getting to some of the northern grounds and how they
Uh,
welcomed you or not.
yeah, well, I remember we went to go to I think it was a seven-a-side tournament at Halifax, but we never made it because the bus got written off on the way down there in the pouring rain. I came off the motorway because I was finding it really difficult to drive. But as I came off, obviously somebody previously had come off and smashed their car, so there was oil all over the road, and the minibus slipped in it and disappeared through a bush. So we didn't
Oh
make that
God.
particular one,
Yeah.
but the other ones, um, yeah, it was interesting. It was lucky we all really got on well. And they were funny rides. I absolutely adored Michael Jackson, and everyone had no choice but to listen to him all the way there and all the way back. Um, and it was, yeah, they were great days. And then we'd get down there, and normally we'd get down there sort of half an hour before the game kicked off. So it was charging into the change room to get changed and then come back out again. And then as soon as we finished, we'd have a swift drink with the hospitality they'd put on, and then we'd have to make our way home. So it was a long day, but it was good fun.
Yeah, yeah. And these were the days where that it was winter rugby, so it was
Yes.
usually filthy. I think I've got some pictures when we played at Keighley when it was just a mud bog.
Yes, I've got that picture as well, where we actually had to be hosed down before we went into the changing rooms. I think it was, yeah, it was grim.
When you look at sort of your playing days, what are your highlights, Miriam? Tell us a bit more because you didn't just stop at playing for Fulham women because they lasted about 4 or 5 years, didn't they?
Yes, and then I went to uh, Warrington. You'll remember Chris Maudsley. So I'd go up to Warrington and play for them. I think there were two Warrington teams, Warrington and Warrington Laporte. And I think
Yes, there was.
I
Yeah.
played for both of them. This is the sad part. There are so many things I've forgotten, but all I do know is that when I think of those days, I think of the joy that I had and what a blast it was and what a unique position to be in to be able to do that so early on. And the best thing is because of people like Chris Maudsley, Dave Clayton, um, and the other people involved, that's why Women's Rugby League is where it is now. Because people like yourself, Kath, me, Michelle, and all the other players that just kept going. And it's still there, which is testament to how hard we all worked.
Absolutely. And you used to travel even for training, didn't you, to play? And it was
Yeah,
Laporte. They had a few name changes, but Laporte was one of them.
yeah. When I was picked as a travelling reserve along with Kath Vidal, and I can't remember who the others were. There was 3 or 4 of us, but travelling reserve meant that 7 million people had to die before you even got the coach. But I just thought, well, what the heck? I've got nothing to lose here, so I drove to Wigan. I finished work early in London, drove to Wigan, trained, then drove back. And at the time, I was doing 3 jobs, and my first job started at 6 in the morning. So I'd get back,
Wow.
literally have time to wash, change, and then go to work. It was tough, but it was really enjoyable. And you know what it's like when you're younger, you can do anything. You think you're
Yeah.
invincible. Now, if I tried that, I probably would just drop dead.
Absolutely. And so it because you were so stoic and you played week in, week out, and people do mention you, by the way, in their interviews. They remember you. Because you're just an awesome personality within rugby league
Yeah.
and one that you wouldn't want ever not to have in rugby league. So you were absolutely awesome in everything with your humor and but also with your commitment. Because that Wigan training you've just mentioned was actually for Lancashire, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. It was. I just thought I have nothing to lose, so I might just. And I absolutely adored the game. Everything about it, the people I'd met, the places I travelled to, were just fantastic. The women I met were just awesome, really friendly bunch. So to me, it was just a pleasure. A lot of driving, but it was a pleasure.
Yeah. So you got in the Lancashire team. Tell us where you played.
Oh, at Old Trafford,
Correct.
and
Oh, you missed that little bit out.
yes, I have got a picture somewhere of me that someone took me standing there, and you can see there was quite a big crowd for
About
that game.
40,000.
Yes, and it was awesome to arrive there in the coach and to get off and to come out of the players' tunnel. And I think Ray French was commentating on that,
He
and he
was.
was standing near the dugouts where we were. So we had a bit of a chat with him. I don't think he was that enamored with women's rugby. Well, he was unpleasant, and it was.
Mm.
I can't remember how long I was on for, but I do remember seeing Lisa Mack whizzing past me more than once. So, but it was really good fun because all the players knew each other, and it was just great fun. I was so glad to be a part of that. And they actually gave me a Lancashire shirt as well. I don't think it was the one I wore, but I've still got that. And I tried it on the other day and realised just how much bigger I was. I am than I was then,
And the thing
but I have still got it.
about that occasion, so it was 1990 and 91 that Yorkshire played
Yes,
Lancashire, and it was in between the premierships, so
that's
that's why
right.
there was a big crowd. And we
Yeah,
have a video of when they went over to the game, when they introduced and Ray French and Alex Murphy have to comment on the game, have to
right.
commentate on the game. It's fabulous. And actually, they do pick out Lisa Mack as a player to watch,
Yes,
interestingly, because the
I'm
first one
not
was
surprised.
22-0.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It was just a fabulous thing to be involved in. And even back then, as early as that, we were still making, great strides towards it happening. And, people were starting to take it seriously. And that was like the pinnacle of what I did, just to have been there, even though it was a very small part, I was there. And I can always say, because I did twice at Old Trafford and once at Knowsley Road.
mm,
So I always say to, people, oh, yes, I was capped 3 times for Lancashire, which is usually amusing in my family because my family's from Yorkshire, but hey, you can't have everything. I was never going to get on that Yorkshire side.
absolutely. It's phenomenal. And when you think of it, it's so early in the development of women's rugby league.
Yes.
And as
I
we've
think the
been,
reason I ended up with Lancashire was because in the league at the time, I think there were 4 Yorkshire teams, 3 Lancashire sides, and us. So they put us in with Lancashire, which
yeah,
is fair enough.
yeah, it is. And Woolston
Mm.
was one of the teams that you played for as well.
Yes,
I know
yes.
that because I've got a very good video,
Oh, have you?
which yeah, that you supplied to me
Oh, of course, yes. See what I mean about memory? Stag.
of a
Yes, yes,
documentary on Woolston, of
that's
which
right.
you
Yes.
feature quite a lot.
Those were good times, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So we can't actually share the documentary yet until we get permission, but we will
right.
be showing people it. And
Oh,
basically,
right,
you were
okay.
on it because of all the amount of traveling you did and your
Yes.
commitment. And one of my
Yeah.
favorite quotes of you on the documentary is, I always got disappointed if after I tackle them, they didn't get up.
Yeah, I did this that actually is funny because when I left rugby league, I obviously went to play for Fulham. I was sort of headhunted by a friend that I played 4 years before. And I have to say that my first few games in goal, um, I forgot that I wasn't actually, playing rugby league, that I was playing football. So eventually, after a few games, I learned to take the ball, not the player. But it was a problem. I did actually get sent off a couple of times for taking the players out and tackling them to the ground. But hey, yeah, no, I absolutely adored my time. It's just that little bit of life that I look at that I think, wow, I was so lucky.
Yeah, and we were lucky to have you as part of the sport and to pioneer, what people, as I said, the history people don't know it and how fabulous it was because other people wanted to play the sport within London after
Yes,
that, didn't they? Because of
yes,
what we were doing at Fulham.
exactly. No, I think um because initially, obviously, with you being a referee, um, you know, people were really looking at, and if you think, well, you know what you've done since
Hmm.
is amazing. So players like you, Lindsay England, Lisa Mack, Jane Banks, they've all taken that game forward and just done the most phenomenal things to the point where I think I wish I was 30 years younger because I, I feel that I could have made an even bigger impact.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm happy with
definitely.
what we did, though. Very
Yeah, and
happy.
without what you did, we wouldn't be as, and I think you've said that really well. Without what we did, we wouldn't be where we are now.
No, no,
And I
that's
know quite
right.
a lot of women have said, "Oh, I wish I was born 30 years later," that have been on this, and then,
Yes,
to
yeah,
have matches on telly, to have women playing at Wembley, which we would never have
exactly.
dreamed of, would
No,
we?
of course you wouldn't. And the game that we went to this year was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely, I'm so proud. I look at those women and I think you're so lucky because for them, probably they just take it for granted that they've gone to play rugby league, and probably don't have a lot of insight into how it got there. Much the same as women's football.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think about football, when during the war, the women's game was fantastic, but when the men came back, they banned women, even though they had crowds of 50,000. But thankfully, we've grown up since then, so that's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. And actually, your whole family loves rugby league as well. Obviously, you married a rugby league player.
Yes, and my kids have got season tickets with London Broncos, so they go to that. And my daughter's been away as well with them. I can't remember where she went, but she went away recently with her boyfriend. So, yeah, she absolutely loves it. She's got lots of shirts, and I'm pleased actually. My son's not so enamored with it, but then he's not enamored with anything much. Um, but no, she loves it. She understands the game, and she sees how very different it is to rugby union.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? And when you
It
think
is.
about those early doors of when the when the when they were developing rugby league, so getting it out into the capital and how it's gone down the generations. So that's what we
Yes.
wanted was to
Yeah.
create rugby league fans of the future. And that's what
Exactly.
we've done with you and your family, which is absolutely fabulous, isn't it?
Yeah, so
No hope.
obviously, yeah, so it goes to the football and the rugby, and it's great. It's, we've introduced them to everything, cricket, etc. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, sport is so important in anybody's life because it promotes teamwork, it promotes loyalty, and it's just a really good thing. So I'm glad it's just not football. Football. It took us time because
Mm.
we our first game was against Featherstone in the cup, and the kids were small and they weren't really that excited. But as I've told you before, the moment my daughter became animated was at half time. When we went to the pub, downstairs to get a drink, and my daughter said, "Oh, mummy, we can't go in there. There's Featherstone fans in there." So I said, "Well, of course we can." So we went in, got a drink, started chatting to them. And she still talks about that now, of how wonderful it is to be able to mix with the other fans and even take a drink into the stand. Silly little things like that.
Yeah.
It's a very different game.
Yeah, it is. Oh, Miriam, thank you. Thank you for your time today. You've been an absolute, and you are a legend, whether you like it or not, or is it a leg end?
No, a leg end, yeah, I think. It's very kind, but it wasn't just me. It was a massive bunch of women that we all had a great time with. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, no, but it's people, women like you, which this is Women in Rugby League Pioneering Years is about celebrating your bit in history that without having that bit in history, we wouldn't be where we are now. So just a really big thank you for doing that and your commitment, enthusiasm, and still your passion for the sport. It's just you can just feel it as you're talking to you.
Yeah.
So
Well,
thank you
thank
ever
you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you for your time.
My
And
pleasure.
give my love to Liz.